So really getting a separate bank account is the easiest thing a business owner can do to get ready for taxes. And if they want
Okay.
to take it a step further, get some sort of bookkeeping system. I mean, yeah, you can hire a bookkeeper. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that is something I encourage. That is something I would like for every business owner to do because it helps. But even if you're not to the point where you can afford that yet, you can do the bookkeeping yourself. Most of these softwares out here now, where you got QuickBooks Self-Employed, Company Zero. Well, all you do is connect the separate bank account that you opened, connect it to the software, and it pretty much does everything for you.
Welcome to the We Got Problems podcast with co-hosts Curtis G. Martin, Rhonda L. Brown, and Caliph Johnson Sr., the one and only podcast where solutions get discussed to our community's everyday troubles. Each week, you will hear mind-blowing conversations and actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become more effective. We got problems and we got solutions.
All right, you guys, welcome to the show. This is We Got Problems, the podcast where we discuss solutions. I'm Curtis G. Martin, and I'm here with my co-host, Rhonda L. Brown.
Hey, everybody.
My other co-host, Caliph Johnson Sr.
Peace, y'all. How y'all doing?
And we have a special guest with us here today, Tyrone Gregory.
Hey, good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time we watching this. What's going on, family?
Hey, so Tyrone, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Oh man, well, what can I say about myself? I'm a shy kind of person, right? Obviously, I don't know much to say about myself, even though I've been living with myself for the past umpteen years. But let's see. So Tyrone Gregory, I'm also known as the self-employed tax guy. I am a tax repair enrolled agent with the IRS. My goal, honestly, is to teach minority-based businesses, Black and brown people, how to really get in the game and win. Because I think that's one thing that has been missing in our community is really understanding how business works on the back end. That way we can survive and win this game, right? So that's what I do. Married, I'm a husband, father to 3 amazing children, man, which is probably the reason why I'm here. Because while I was single and wilding out, I wasn't worried about money. I didn't have no responsibility up in the club blowing it. Then had my kids and was like, oh no, I can't be doing this. Got to support them. So I had to learn how money works. Got audited by the IRS, which is how I ended up doing taxes. Always been an entrepreneur. I love business. Business is my passion. I love helping people get their business. I love seeing people succeed, which led me to this journey of being on YouTube, helping people, start their businesses without LLCs. I mean, y'all can kind of see the shirt. It's just something we'll
I
talk
was going
about
to ask about
later
that.
on. But that's me in a nutshell.
So you call yourself a serial entrepreneur. What is a serial entrepreneur?
You know what? The serial entrepreneur is somebody who has multiple businesses going on, honestly. And even though that sound, I'm gonna be honest with you, in the sense of business, being a serial entrepreneur sounds like a beautiful thing, but in essence, it can be a difficult thing if you're not disciplined, right? Because it's hard enough to run and manage one business, and then you trying to do multiple businesses and get things going on. I like to say just focus on the MVP, the minimum viable product, whatever that one thing is that's going to fuel everything else. Focus on that one and then go.
Okay. So you say you got audited by the IRS. Is that how you got into doing taxes?
That is exactly how I got into doing taxes. Shout out to my wife because she, like I say, when I was single, when I was young, didn't know no better, working, making a lot of money. I didn't even file my taxes. It was my wife when we got together and we first got married, and she was like, just out the blue one day, she was like, did you file your taxes? And I was like, yeah, line through my teeth, right? And I was like, let me go ahead and get this together. And at the time, I had like a little construction company here in California because I love at the time working with my hands. And it was like, let me go in and grab everything together. And to my thought, I thought I was an intelligent young individual, right? Like I had read the publications in the IRS, did everything, thought I had everything lined out. And so we hired somebody to do the taxes. I gave them everything they needed. We hired it, took their advice. They was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Fine. I don't know taxes. That's why I hired you, right? Like you're going to do this for me. Hired them. And I say probably a couple of months later, got a letter from the IRS who was being audited because the way that they filed this was incorrectly, like a lot of preparers do, right? They want to try to get you the most money back. They want to get you the biggest refund. And sometimes the way that they do that is not the legal way to do that. And so we got caught up, and it was like one of the worst experience financially that I had been through. And at that time, I told my wife, I was like, well, you know what? Forget that. From this point forward, I'll learn how to do it myself before I trust another individual. And so I went and took the course, uh, really got excited because as I was learning, my mind was being blown like, wow, they don't teach us this. Like, this is something that I've never been taught. This is conversations I never had in my house. This is things I never knew existed until I took this course. And from there, it was like, man, it really changed. I let go of the construction company, went into taxes full time, and here I am.
Okay. So with COVID and everything and the way the whole work world is set up now, do you find the tax laws changing frequently? And if so, what are some of the things you notice?
You know what? With the introduction of COVID, man, it definitely changed the way that taxes are being prepared. It changed a lot of tax laws. Think about it, man. Right before COVID, we had the Tax Cuts and Job Act, which kind of was like the biggest overhaul to taxes like since the 80s. Then when COVID came, we had the COVID Relief Act, which added a whole bunch of other things. And what that did, man, I'll be honest with you, glad you guys asked that. The whole tax landscape is changing, and it's not necessarily going to get any better. Right? Like I'm involved with a lot of tax communities, and we talk a lot online, and we see that there's this big gap growing in the tax community where some of the older preparers who have been in the game for years and people been using them for years and things like that, they was like, you know what, the tax laws is getting too much. We out. Like I can't put my energy trying to figure out what this tax law means and how to translate this and all these new forms. So you have those OGs in the game, they leaving. And then you have the youngsters coming up who just ain't doing it right. You know what I'm saying? So now there is there's this big gap between actually getting some real people who can keep you out of trouble versus an individual who just wants your money. So when we talk about with the introduction of COVID, especially with all these other laws and these reliefs, for example, there's a lot of incorrect things going on with the employee relief credit, the ERC, which means like if you had employees during COVID and you actually retained them, you would get a certain credit, which you could refund for the business. But it's a lot of things that COVID has changed for taxes. The IRS understands that unfortunately a lot of fraudulent activities been happening. So now they're ramping up their audit activities. So a lot more people are going to be audited. It's just a lot of things happening in the tax world, which is why I'm just hoping that everybody really understands how taxes work, do what you need to do, stay on the good side of the IRS and avoid everything else.
All right. So what do you mean by get to the bag without a LLC?
I mean, so let me ask the question. What is an LLC, right? Like an LLC does what for a business? Now, I'm asking you three, just basically, I know y'all business people. From your understanding, what does an LLC really do for your business?
So my understanding is that it's supposed to have limited liability for us as a business owner, to where they're going to come after the business and not me personally.
Okay. And that's pretty much, I do believe that probably is the same sentiment that I'm gonna say 99% of the people think when they hear about an LLC, which in some cases is true, right? Like I know I have the shirt that says no LLC, and the only reason I have this shirt is because I think we have a misunderstanding of what an LLC is. I said you can get to the bag without an LLC because in all honesty, an LLC is not a requirement to start your business. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because as a tax preparer, I've had people come to my desk and they like almost with tears in their eyes because they're trying to figure out how to manage this structure that they have and still manage their business. And I'm like, well, it's technically not needed at this point. And that's the key word, because an LLC does have a purpose at a certain point. But initially, you don't have to have an LLC to get to the bag. An LLC is not going to do anything to help you get to the bag. And I've had conversations with people say, well, an LLC makes people trust me. And I'm like, trust does not come from an LLC. Think about it. The brands that we use, have we ever checked the fact that is there an LLC at the end of their name? Like we don't. We use those brands because the brand itself has translated value to us, right? LLC will help you in marketing. LLC does not help you in marketing, right? It does nothing. Like we have a misconception of what an LLC does for a business. So my goal is to try to get people like, look, you can start a legitimate money-making business without an LLC because it's just one less thing for them to worry about. Like I've had arguments with people at the tax desk that says I need, like in my video, the most famous one, the argument I've had was this man was driving for Uber and he's like, yeah, they told me I need to get an LLC so I can drive for Uber. And I'm like, what is that going to do for you? And he's like, well, again, a lot of people say an LLC is going to protect me in case something happens, right? In case something happens, I should get an LLC. That's what we hear across every platform is in case something happens. Well, me, I say, well, let's look at in case something happens, right? Let's look at what the court actually says, because that's what we worried about, litigation. So let's see what happens if you get litigated. And when we look at court cases, we can see that the LLC doesn't always play out the way people expect it to, especially when it comes to bodily harm and injury, right? Many times when it comes to bodily harm and injury, which is what I'm gonna say 90% of the people worried about. What if my product causes harm to somebody else? The LLC will protect me. Well, the court cases say different. The judges simply bypass that, pierce the corporate veil, because it was an actual damage to a person or some sort of property. The court simply say, yeah, no, we still gonna hold the owner's personally liable, which to me defeats the purpose of LLC. So you just paid this money thinking that you're protected and you're really not. When the best thing for you to invest in as a small business is insurance. Get you some business insurance. If you're worried about protecting other assets, add you an umbrella policy to that insurance. That way your assets is also covered. But the LLC is really more for contracts. I will suggest if you're dealing with paper and you got a lot of contracts going on where you may possibly can default on the contract, then if the LLC is structured property, it plays best well in that arena. But when we're talking about trying to prevent bodily harm and injury and protecting yourself from that, it don't play out the way people think it do. So don't focus on the LLC because it's not going to help you get to the bag. And LLC does not bring in money, right? In order to have a business, you need two things, something to sell and somebody to sell it to. And once you have those two things, you're good to go. Nothing else really matters except for focusing on those two things, having something to sell and somebody sell it to.
Okay. What were some of the breakthrough moments you had in business?
Breakthrough moments. Well, one is don't wait too long. I think when I first started off in this tax game was over 13 years ago. And I was working for one of the big box retailers, one of the biggest tax companies out there. Went up through the ranks. The first year I got on, and it was part time, right? Because tax season is January through April, right? So that was my first time. I worked those 4 months, had a blast. Every business customer that came through the door, I was like, I want them because I guarantee you they don't know this, and this. And that energy kind of the next year, I was a manager. The year after that, I was district manager. I kept growing in this company to the point where I got, to a ceiling. So again, to answer the question is I waited too long to start my own business. That was the first breakthrough. Don't If you have a passion for something, if you know that you can help solve a problem, if you can help people, do it. Like don't wait. Don't delay. Do it as soon as you can. It don't, and that's another thing. That's why I say no LLC, because a lot of people be like, well, I can't afford an LLC, so I'm not gonna start my business. And that right there is one of my pet peeves. Like, don't start. You don't need it to start. If you can do it, if you're doing it right now, if you're helping people solve a problem right now, only thing you have to change is start charging them for it, and then you have a business, which is my second breakthrough. Charge folks. Since I have a huge heart for helping people, but one of the biggest breakthroughs I understand is that people that don't pay attention. And I say that because I had one of my wife's best friend. They would always come over and we would get into these long conversations about business. I mean, we'd be there for hours talking, days talking. And I would just, because I just like helping people here, do this, do this, do that, wouldn't listen. And it was funny, that same individual went to a business workshop, right, in Louisiana, paid over $5,000. And this is when the breakthrough came about people paying attention. So she spent all this money, $5,000+ came back and was like, man, I just spent $5,000 for them to tell me everything that you told me here at this dinner table. And I was like, wow. That was like that. That was a breakthrough for me right there. Like, people only pay, they only pay attention when they pay. If you giving them stuff for free, it's not going to work. So off top, that was the biggest breakthrough, is make sure that you are charging your worth.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need an LLC to do that.
Okay, so applying to that, how does that change the way you approach doing business now?
The one is the approach that I'm actually helping people. And it's funny, kind of like when we talk about sales, nobody wants to do sales because they have this negative connotation on what sales is. But if you think about it, when you sell, you're actually helping somebody. Going back to that example, if I would have charged up front, then I probably kind of would have charged a little less because, it was my wife's friend, but still, because they was forced to pay something, they would have paid attention to what I was saying and would have had more. How can I say this? Because the time from when we talked and they actually went on there was about a year, and that individual didn't act on anything that I said because it was just, just me talking at the dinner table. Really wasn't nothing like that. But think about that. That was a year of time wasted that individual could have been doing something within that year and then elevating from that point on. Because if we think about it in business, right, timing is everything. I read about that, and like, if you ever read that book, the 22 immutable laws of marketing, it says the first on the scene is the one to dominate, right? So when we in business, time is everything. So when I'm talking about, when I now approach people like, look, I have the game for you. I can give it to you, but you got to pay something, because if you don't pay, you pay attention. So it's not like I'm trying to manipulate or force anybody, but I understand the psychology of business is like, yo, you have to give something, because when you give something in exchange, you appreciate it more, and then you have a lot more higher chance of acting on the information you receive because it wasn't free.
And so what's some of the top red flags for taxes?
Oh man. First let's go down the list. Not filing at all. That's one of the top things that will get you in trouble with the IRS. And I'll say this: the IRS ain't as mean as people think they are. Like, they ain't these big bad monsters people want to portray in the media, like, oh, the IRS is sending people to jail and things like that. No, if you go to jail from the IRS, you ignored them a pretty long time. You know, being in this industry, most of the people who went to jail from the IRS, they ignored them a pretty long time, because the IRS is first going to send you a letter. And that's the first thing you do is open it, see what they say. Right? It could be something missing. Right. So going back to the first flag is not filing at all, because at this point they know everything that you get, pretty much. Right. So if you forget to report it, they're gonna send you a letter that says, hey, you reported this, we received this, we just want to reconcile. Simple as that, right? So that's the first thing. Always file. If not, when you get that letter, open it. The second thing I will say is consistency. Right, a lot of people, when they file their returns, one year they claiming the grandkids, the next year they claiming niece and nephew, the next year they claiming their mom and daddy. It's like, you know what? I was just reading this morning about an article about how the IRS chooses who to audit, and it was very interesting that there's a machine. Obviously, everything, because they get millions of tax returns a year, right? So they have a AI per se that actually goes through and look for anomalies in tax returns. So inconsistencies in tax return is definitely something that's going to go up with with the IRS. So that's another thing. So definitely be consistent. Stay away from fives and zeros. That's definitely another another flag. And what I mean by that is, normally, especially when you're a business owner, you know, if you don't have your books in order, if you don't have a separate bank account, when you come sit down with your tax preparer, and I'm like, all right, cool. Let's go over the numbers. What did you spend in advertising? And they like, oh, then for some reason they look up at the ceiling. Like, I don't like the tile is magical numbers, there's a QR code up there or something. And they like, yeah, I spent 3,000. I'm like, all right, 3,000, even really 3,000. Oh, that's what you spent. Like, yeah, just $3,000. And I'm like, look, the IRS knows that nothing always lands on zero, right? So they're like, okay, well, 3,005. So I don't know what it is with business owner. They either go 0 or 5. I'm like, zeros and fives, again, they know that if you're having that, you're guessing. And if they know you guessing, they know that something is either over-reported or under-reported, and they're going to say, look, we need more accuracy, send us more information. That's definitely another thing. And then what else I would say for being red flags for the IRS? Switching businesses, taking losses. Now, taking losses is a natural thing, right? Like, when you start in a business, especially within the first couple of years, taking a loss is a natural thing. But then you have some people that just take that farther than they need to. You have some people that take a loss 4 years, 5. I done seen 10, 15 losses straight. And the IRS is like, all right, well, look, is this a business or is this a hobby? Because at some point, a business has to be profitable. And if it's not profitable, then what's going on? And then there's 9 profit factors that the IRS looked at to say, we gonna run it against these ideas, these principles, and it's not all of them have the same weight. Like, they can mix and choose depending on the situation. So everything is situational, but they look at these factors. And if they determine that it's not a business and it's a hobby, all of those losses go away. And then that means that you're going to increase your tax return. And now you owe where at first you didn't. Right. And that's pretty much the biggest flag. I know that was 415, but I mean, those are probably some of the biggest red flags out there when it comes to an audit.
So how would a business owner like prepare to get their taxes done? What all do they need?
Really? And
And
I'm
and and a second part to that is, when do they need to start preparing for their taxes?
man, and that's a great question. Glad you asked. And really, it's so easy. The only thing you really need to do is get a separate bank account. And I will say do that as soon as you start the business. Because what that does is it helps you really identify what you spent your money on. Because think about what a tax return is. A tax return is simply a reconciliation for the year to the IRS, right? Everything gets reported to the IRS, and the IRS simply says, "All right, yeah, we see that you earned 100,000, and you reported 100,000, right? So that matches. So we cool there. Now, only thing we need to do is just see of that 100,000, what are the expenses that they don't know, that you tell them. But how do you know what you spend money on instead of looking up at the ceiling? Get you a separate bank account. So when you have everything that you spending comes out that bank account, you good. You know, this is what I spend. Yeah, I made 100,000, but I spent 75. So technically, my income, my taxable income, because we're not paying tax on what we made, we pay tax on what's left over. So now my taxable income is only 25,000. So really getting a separate bank account is the easiest thing a business owner can do to get ready for taxes. And if they want to take it a step further, get some sort of bookkeeping system. I mean, yeah, you can hire a bookkeeper. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that is something I encourage. That is something I would like for every business owner to do because it helps. But even if you're not to the point where you can afford that yet, you can do the bookkeeping yourself. Most of these softwares out here now, where you got QuickBooks Self-Employed, Company Zero, well, all you do is connect the separate bank account that you opened, connect it to the software, and it pretty much does everything for you. Like I had a
Okay.
client this year, man. He kind of, the way we set it up, I was like, man, I think I'm gonna make this a mandatory for all my business owners. Like we got him set up in the very beginning, set up the business bank account, showed him how to do the reconciliation with the bookkeeping software, and at the end of the year, I think we maybe talked twice because everything was already done. I knew how much he spent. I knew how much he made. Ran a report based on the information. I was able to do the tax return. Was like, here you go, sign it. He's like, cool, thank you. Said same bank account. Like, yeah, cool. There you go, your refund. We good. And I was like, man, every business should do that because it's just really just that simple.
Okay. What is the business blueprint?
Man, the blueprint for a business: one, focus on your two things, your product and or service. You have to be an expert at that, right? Like if somebody asks you about your product and your service, you have to be able to go into the depths of everything you can to explain it, because that's where the trust comes in at. That's what makes them trust you, right? If you can't explain your product or service to a potential customer, you lost them, right? Then you have to find the customer who needs your product or service. That's the first thing you need to do. Then once you find the product or service, once you really honed in on your service, you got a customers willing to pay for it, then you start building your brand. Because of course, if you're doing it right, they're going to refer you to people. Branding is important. Branding is being consistent with your brand is important. You don't need an LLC to brand. A lot of people thought I'm gonna get an LLC because it gives me trademark protection. It does not give you trademark protection. Um, Pick a name, make sure you good. Then again, once you do all of that, set up that business bank account, manage everything through that business bank account. Then you start marketing, understanding who your customer is. Then go ahead and start process working on your sales plan. Because I know a lot of people think social media, just posting on Instagram and all things like that, is marketing and sales. It really isn't. There's a lot more to it. There's a strategy behind it. Um, And then, decide once you do that, actually put a plan together, right? Like you actually have to put a plan together. If you don't have a plan, you just kind of shooting in the dark, hoping something stick, hoping you hit a target. But if you have a plan, you now can measure against like, okay, we said we wanted to make 100,000 in the first quarter. Did we or did we not? If we did, can we duplicate that? If we did not, why we didn't, do we have to go back, readjust, and reconfigure and go back out? So once you have that, and again, that's just the absolute basics thing to do, right? So once you do that, now you actually have a business and you're good to go. And like I said, I mean, business is easy. We talk about the blueprint, you get something to sell, somebody to sell it to, get your structure set up, get your business bank account set up, and then you get it through a bookkeeping system. That's really the game, because once you do that, you now can look at everything and analyze. And I think that's where a lot of businesses they don't analyze. They think, oh, because there's money coming in, I'm good, which not necessarily true. Right? So you figure, yeah, I may have $1 coming in, but really for every dollar that's coming in, how much of that is profit? How much of that do I really get to keep? And if we don't know that, then that's why most businesses only last 2-3 years, because they blind to what's happening in the background.
All right. So next up, excuse me, we have some rapid fire questions we're going to talk about.
All right, let's go. I think I'm ready for it.
What's the most important thing you ever learned in life?
Oh man, the most important thing I ever last. So don't freak out. I think stress is a real thing. Stress can really stop you from being productive. So if you understand that, you only can control what you can control, which is you, and you really can't control nobody else. Things happen, how you deal with it. Like my wife, it irritates her that I don't get mad at all. And I'm like, for what? I'm going to do what I got to do regardless of what's going on. Like if I stop and give energy to that, then we don't move forward. So whatever happens, I don't freak out. I'm like, all right, let's go. What are we going to do about it? Because to me, like, yeah, you can get upset. You can be mad. Oh, I can't believe that. Like, all right, well, what are we going to do about it? Let's come up with a solution. I'm more solution-based than I am problem.
So are we.
Yeah. Yeah, because we know we got problems, right? It's the whole point. We know we got problems. What's the solution?
Right.
Got those
All
too.
right. So if you could turn back the hands of time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give you?
Oh, stop spending so much money. That's advice I would give myself, is really stop spending so much money. Invest in yourself, in your knowledge, learn, don't be afraid to get out there and really do what you've been called to do. Right. That's the advice I would give myself. I'll listen to E40 and the song, and he said that, money costs too much and I ain't got a dime. That it was like, man, what he was saying is like, we really have to understand the value of money. And if I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self that, like, man, you really got to understand the value of a dollar. There's a difference between its intrinsic value versus its labor value. So I would definitely go back and teach my younger self that lesson.
Okay. If you could sit down and have a conversation with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Man, right now, Jay-Z. That's the person I would definitely want to sit down and have a conversation with. And the reason why is because his mentality, the way he approaches things, has elevated him to such a level where he's not only wealthy, but he's impactful. Him and his wife are doing things for the community, getting into politics, getting into the laws. They not just complaining about it. They not just talking about it, but they actually trying to make real impactful changes. So I would love to sit down and just have just give me a 5-minute conversation. Just give me just answer one question for me with Jay. I'd do that.
All right. People often say we need to save money. We need to invest. What type of things should we be investing in?
The things you buy. if we think about, like I say, understanding the value of money, right? Understanding how money works. Our economy, the term economy is based on transactions, right? The more transactions is happening within a particular continent, the stronger the economy is, right? It's like as long as there's a transaction happening between the customer and the buyer, we have an economy. So when we look at investing, it's like, what do we buy? If you have an Apple phone, invest in Apple, right? That way, sometimes you talk to somebody buy an Apple phone, they be like, man, I just got this new Apple 25. And you can be like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. They look at you funny. Why? Because you just put money in my pocket, right? If you shop at Walmart, invest in Walmart, right? If you shop at Target or whatever you spend your money on, that's what you invest in. And that's what I'm teaching my kids right now. Like, y'all like these Nikes and this Jordan, buy some Nike stock. Make Nike pay for the Nike shoes you're buying. Because that's really all it is a stock. If you think about it, we at the bottom, and this is the weirdest thing to me, and I can't wrap my head around it, but we at the bottom feed those at the top. It's very simple if you think about it. We are the number one consumers of everything, right? But we don't own everything because we giving our money to the people at the top. So if you think about investment, whatever you use, if you're going to spend money on it, you should also invest in it. And investing ain't that complicated. It is not that complicated. I know it seemed that way because there's a lot of terminology that we don't know because it's not talked about in the home. But at its most basic concept, if you buying it, you could also invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's one tool that makes your business run smoother?
One tool that makes it run smoother, the internet. No. Man, that's definitely a good one because I have a lot of tools of Mars, especially with video, audio. Um, I honestly don't know what tool that I use to make it run smoother.
So I
I'm gonna
guess
say
that will
right
be the
now,
internet, huh?
but I'll say right now that helps me, that I use, especially because even though I do taxes, I also do a lot of video content, trying to make educational videos out there. So one of the things that I'm using right now that's really helping is Adobe Premiere, trying to help me edit these videos and get it out, creating workflows and things like that. So between Adobe Premiere and Fiverr.com, where I can hire somebody for cheap to help get something done, those are the main two tools that I'm using right now to really help my business get out there.
Okay. So if you had to recommend one book right now, what would it be and why?
Uh, The Greatest Salesman on Earth. And the reason I like that book is the story of how one man amassed like a lot of riches. Like, he was considered to be one of the richest men in the world. As a matter of fact, it is right. Like, I got the book. I carry it with me. It's right here. It's really called The Greatest Salesman in the World, by Og Mandino. And the story, and I literally just made all my kids just finish reading this book too, because this man amassed all this wealth by being humble. Right? He didn't manipulate nobody. He didn't do bad business. He didn't do anything illegal, but he made it to the top by being a good dude, right? Like, he gave so much money back. Like, I think one of the rules is for every dollar he made, half of it went back to charity, like off top. And that's how, and because he did that, how he built that, and it has like, one of the things in there is a scroll. It changes the mindset of how you have to go out there and be. And it has all these principles lined out there, these affirmations that that you say to yourself daily that helps you become this great individual. So yeah, The Greatest Salesman in the World. Old book, old school. I love it though. Read it. It's a beautiful thing.
All right, what's one tip you can tell the people that can help our community become a better place?
Learn. I know that's in today's society, we want everything to us at an instant. But even that, even if you can go online, if you can go to the We Got Problems podcast, go back, listen to some previous episodes, learn, become a student and learn this. But don't just listen to random people saying everything, or, like trust but verify. I tell even my YouTube community, like, yo, yeah, I'm passionate about these things, but even the things I'm telling you, verify, because not everything works for everybody. But we have to learn as a people. That is the only thing that is separating us from those at the top, is what we know. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. Like if we can even go back to slavery, right? If we look at what was the difference between the slave and the slave master, was knowledge. If the slave knew everything that the slave master knew, yo, we ain't doing this. Now it's going to be a negotiation. It ain't going to be employee-employer type deal. It's going to be two bosses coming together, and we going to make sure that we both win it. That's the only difference, right? So learn as much as you can, trust but verify, do your research, and make sure that whatever you know, it actually works for you, not just because somebody said it was going to work. Make sure that it's going to work for you and your specific situation. Because once you know that, then yeah, you straight. Can't nothing hold you down.
So with everything that you do, how do you balance work life and family life?
Oh man, that's definitely a beautiful thing. And that's it's actually a tax tip if you think about it. I involve my family in my work. They're like my board of advisors. And because I have a board of advisors that involves my family, everything that we do is a tax write-off. If we go on a trip, because the IRS does allow you to take your board of advisors and have an annual meeting, quarterly meeting, things like that. So now they are with me when we travel, and as long as we talk business or we do business, at least, a couple hours throughout the day, the whole thing is a write-off. Like when me and my wife go to dinner, it's like, yeah, hey, we got to talk business a little bit. Let's talk about what we're going to do. Cool. Now let's eat. That's a write-off. I was just telling my kids, my son, he used to be here with me when I would go live every Friday on YouTube. He would be in here helping me work some of these controls, so now he's my video advisor, right? So now he gets to be with me, and we get to do work together and play. My daughter has more followers on social media than I do, and like I was kind of like wondering how is that possible. Like I got 100+ posts on social media, she got 10, and she got thousands of followers, and I got like maybe 1,000. I'm like, how is that possible? But whatever, you're now in charge of my social media marketing, right? You are my social media advisor. So now when we come together as a family, everything that we do is deductible. And I keep them involved, which also allows me to help them educate on how to do business.
Okay. How do you and the family celebrate y'all wins?
Oh man, we just do crazy random stuff. Like the other day, we good day, right? What happened? I think I finally finished because I'm working on my little private community, right? Like I'm setting up a private community right now that people can come in and get some real networking and deep education. And I finally finished the website. Like I'm a DIY kind of person. I'm a hands-on. I like doing everything by myself. So I was building this website. Something happened. I got it to work. And I'm like, let's go to the drive-in. So we all just randomly packed up and went to the drive-in, and we sat there and watched the movie. And we were just random stuff. For me and the wife, when we trying to get rid of the kids, we go out of town. Like we went to Jamaica in the middle of tax season. Like, you know what? Let's go. And we just went. But because she's my executive assistant and we had to go talk about some business, of course that's a write-off. So absolutely.
Keep it in the family.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, but that's how we celebrate, man. We just do wild and crazy thing, game nights. Like I literally, and I don't want to hear y'all clowning, I literally just learned how to play spades Friday night. I saw that look.
Wow.
Trash vegan. Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Hey, my mama, I just felt the size 10 coming up somewhere. My mama, boy, you cut me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I learned spades at 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, look. So, last question: how can the people find you?
Man, the biggest platform to find me is on YouTube. You'll find me there. That's why I pretty much give everything that I pretty much know when it comes to taxes and business and wealth building. They can find me there on YouTube at the same name. They can look up. I prefer to look up the Self-Employed Tax Guide, right? Because if you type Tyrone into Google, you get all kind of mug shots that come up. People doing that, right? So, type in the Self-Employed Tax Guide when you go to YouTube. That way you go directly to my channel. I get a little bit more personal on Instagram, again, at the same name, the Self-Employed Tax Guide. You can find me there, clowning, admitting that I just learned how to play spades and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the two platforms that I be on the most.
All right. What's one thing that you want to leave the people with before we get out of here?
Man, if I can lead the people with anything, just know that it's possible. Whatever it is that you want to do, it's possible, especially when it comes to businesses. The people who have succeeded in business are the people who said, you know what, I'm not going to listen to what the haters are saying. I'm about to get out here. I'm about to do it, and I'm going to make it happen. So just know it's possible. Do it, and you're going to be straight.
All right, Rhonda, you have anything you want to leave the people
You're
with?
going to be straight as long as you pay your taxes.
Oh, there we go. How about you, Trash? What you want to leave the people with?
Man, make sure you take care of your business out here. A LLC is one way to go about it, but there's other ways to go about
Absolutely.
it. Tap in with Brother Tyrone. He can help you out with that.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was gonna say. Hey, you guys, if y'all need y'all taxes, we had an episode where we just talked about supporting Black businesses and spending money within our community. Y'all look up Self-Employed Tax Guy. He can help you with your taxes. He can help you stay out of trouble. I ain't gonna say help you get out of trouble. He can help you stay out of trouble. Right?
Absolutely.
And you guys, let's recycle these dollars. Right? Yeah. Let's keep these dollars in our community. Hey, you guys, because we know we got problems, but we also have solutions.
There it is.
From the team at CRC Empire, we want to thank you for listening. To stay connected with us, like, share, and subscribe to the We Got Problems podcast. You can find us on social media platforms at Curtis Martin 247, at Rhonda Wrights Official, and at the_trash_vegan_. We got problems and we got solutions.